All right, we're going to start with introductions and then into minutes. We'll start right over there.
Eric Mullins,
Howard Bauman, Port Charlotte Township.
Yeah, again, Jewel Township.
Fairly nice township.
Sherry Lunsford, Parkman Township.
Tim Berkman with the MACC.
David Van Gethoven, at-large member.
Steve Redmond, MDOT, Grand Region Office.
Russ Teslau, the MACC Authority Board.
Tom Bird, Ottawa Road Commission.
Joe Bauman, Ottawa County Commissioners.
Ken DeWitt, Fillmore Township.
Ed Stills, Shirley Township.
And welcome, Hannes.
Thank you.
Good to have you here, sir.
Sorry to interrupt the meeting.
You are doing fine, sir. Just introductions. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm Mark Myers, and I'm a member of the MACC. And it's good to be back, if I may say so. I really appreciated your keeping this seat open. This body has always been very important to me, as it is to you. It's just good to be back. Thank you.
Good to have you back. Absolutely. All right.
Rob Bank with Matt.
John Langdon, Michigan Association of Railroad Passengers.
Okay.
Kelly Howard with Mac.
All right. And?
Carolyn Alstead with Mac.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, with introductions, we have the minutes, and I'll take a motion if they're appropriate. Any clarifications or changes? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Mr. Langdon.
It's been a while, but it's great to be here again. The topic today is bikes on trains. Michigan Association of Railroad Passengers, along with MDOT Office of Rail and Amtrak, have been working on promoting bikes on trains. It was late July that all three of the Michigan trains had bikes. And I'm here to ask you folks, local forms of government, to post a poster on your community bulletin board that's on the back table, and we greatly appreciate it. I'll leave some business cards there too, that if you want a PDF or a Word press release on the Bikes on Trains promotion, I'll leave the card. You can email me a message and let me know, and I'll get them to you electronically. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
You're fine, by the way. All right, transportation program. Tim, do you want to make any comments before we start?
No, we'll go right into Lisa's presentation. This is covering the performance targets that we've been reviewing at Tech, and she'll take over with the presentation and summary.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have some materials for you that pretty lengthy read on performance measures, but what I have planned for you today are some slides to walk you through a number of targets that we're proposing to approve today. So, first of all, I wanted to just draw your attention to the memo itself. And we're going to be talking about 4 separate targets today. The first one is related to transit, but I did want to make sure that you're aware that I'll be going through each of the targets that have been proposed. And as a next step, if you would take action today, our next step will be to prepare a progress report, which, as you know, we did for our first set of targets. And our strategy is that this progress report can then be appended to the back of our TIP document, to the back of our long-range transportation plan. So we will plan to present that to you next month, but it will incorporate all of the targets that we're talking about today. So that's basically our next step. And this is, again, in order to comply with federal regs that require us to make sure that we've taken action on targets and then that we have this material publicly available. All right, so what I have before you is a list of transit targets. And at our technical committee meeting this month, we invited staff from MACC Transit to come and talk to us about a transit asset management plan that has been part of the federal regs that was required to be prepared. And with that is the term state of good repair. So what you see before you are 3 categories, and the targets basically are to replace equipment that is in need of replacing in order to keep it in the state of good repair. Let's see here. And I do want to also mention that in your packet there is a table, which I didn't provide a slide of it, but there are categories which include the vehicles themselves, equipment, and facilities. And since the MACC Transit facilities are in really great shape, recent construction of the most recent building was, or the bus maintenance garage. So basically, these are the areas that are in need of action. And you'll notice on the chart here that the rubber tire vintage trolley has a goal of, it has 100%. That is a vehicle that is not intended to be replaced, so that's the reason that has been pulled out separately. All right, and I wanted to also mention that these annual performance targets that you see listed for vehicles and for equipment, this is something that MACC staff has been basically preparing an inventory, and it's a capital inventory that's required. And they then have to submit this to a national transit database. So we as the MPO must now include this in our documents so that people are aware of the areas that are being identified for improvement. But you can see from this table that MACC does a really good job of using their resources and keeping their vehicles in good shape. So are there any questions before I go on? We're taking all of these together, but I just wanted to make sure if you have any questions, because I do have some additional notes if you would like to know. No? You're a quiet group today. All right, well, if you have anything else, you know, this is basically to keep all the equipment in good, useful life, to make sure that transit agencies across the country are keeping equipment in good condition and not keeping vehicles beyond their useful life. And I know that, yeah, I don't want to go on with more detail than you want, but this is just something that we wanted to make sure that you're aware of and we can take action on.
Just the important thing for the MACC being from there is we have 32 buses. You know, depending on 8 to 10 of the fixed routes, and then the other 20 buses a day that are picking up the demand response. So we have to replace between 4 to 8 buses a year. 4 is kind of a minimum because that would average out to a 10-year cycle, and they do not last 10 years. So generally, it's anywhere from 6 to 8 years, really, on most of the buses. So 4 is really on our low end of replacement that has to happen in order to maintain the fleet.
Thank you for that. So, and why this is important for you to be aware of is later in our agenda, Tim will be talking to you about the TIP development cycle. And The MACC has always included transit funding, and we have been able to use CMACC funding for the purchase of new bus vehicles. So that's something that you should be aware that we also have a timeline that we keep in our long-range transportation plan, which addresses what Russ just referred to, acknowledging the life that's expected of each bus. So we have to be aware of when we're expecting to replace those vehicles. All right. I want to just make one last point in that the reason you're seeing this is it's required by federal regs, but the nice thing is that we have such a good relationship with MACC Transit staff so that we're able to dialogue back and forth and make sure we're aware of what the MACC Transit needs are, and our documents then reflect those needs. So, all right, I'm going to continue on, and the next set of targets are a bit more on the complicated side in terms of reliability. So what I'm going to do is highlight some of the key points that I believe are important for you to know in order to take action today. And the big point that this slide right here is going to point out to you is there's a difference between travel time reliability, which this target is specifically focusing on, and congestion. So I do want to point out that this slide was borrowed by MDOT. We had a gentleman by the name of Brad Charlo come and present to the technical committee this month, and he answered questions that the technical committee had. So I'm also going to rely on some of those technical committee members that also share the hat of a policy member. If you have any additional comments, please jump right in. So basically, this target is focusing on travel time reliability. So how consistent your travel time is on a specific route. And the reason being is that you need to know how much time to plan in your commute when you're going to a destination. And if you take a particular route which is unreliable, which varies greatly, in order to get to your destination on time, you're probably going to overplan. So that's the purpose of having this target. So being able to have an accurate assessment of travel time reliability doesn't necessarily mean congestion. All right. I wanted to also point out that there are a number of different performance measures that we have been required to take action on. Safety measures, as you know, you approved in April, and that is something that I believe we then submitted in May to MDOT. Pavement and bridge will be something we'll be talking about in just a moment. And system performance includes 3 elements. The national highway system, so whenever there's a segment that's on the national highway system or on a bridge, which is national highway system designation, we must include this as a target. The second thing you'll see is freight, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. The last item, CMACC, thankfully, is one that our MPO does not have to look at in terms of the CMACC target applies to SEMCOG, which is a larger MPO and which addresses based on their population. They are required to have this additional target. So that has been taken off of our list. But I think it's important for you to see how this all fits together. And you know, looking into the future, as you know, these targets are going to be important for us to be able to assess and to be able to show progress that we're making to meet within the region. So these are some of the elements, the terms that are in the newsletter that was included for you. So I'm going to just briefly list them, but if you have additional questions, let me know. So percent travel times, and what I wanted to point out is that this is weekdays during that we're looking at specifically. And so it's the 80th and the 95th percentile. And there's both the travel time index, a buffer index, and planning time index. All right. And with regard to system performance, this looks at specifically the interstate, the non-interstate, and freight movement. So for each of these, there's a bit of well, there's a lot of data, as you can see, a lot of data that's required, and thankfully the state has done a lot of the calculations for the MACC area. All right, so these are 2 points that are also in the newsletter that was provided to you. The level of time reliability, there are 2 and 4 year targets, whereas for trucks, we're looking at 2 and 4 year targets that are primarily on the interstate. And this is where you can see that the percentiles are slightly different. For the reference travel time, I think I'm going to stop right now and wait until you have questions, but you can see that there's a great deal of data regarding when the specific intervals that have been selected. All right, and basically what I wanted to point out to you is this is the recommended 2 and 4 year targets. These are relatively conservative goals of 75%. And there are a number of different, well, there are 2 different contractors that collected this data, but you can see the baseline for the state in 2017 was 85.2%, and 18 it was 84.9. So with the percentage increasing, that is part of the reason I believe that the state chose to use a more conservative baseline. And the information for the non-interstate national highway system, and we do have segments in our region that are NHS, is also, you can see a slight decrease here in 85.7% in 18. And for freight reliability, you can see that the target is kind of a middle ground between 17 and 18. So I want to show you what this means now that I've gone through and explained the different elements. And I thought this table would probably help you to see where the Holland area fits compared to the other MPOs within the state. And basically, in terms of travel time reliability, the segments in our region are doing quite well. And so the target that we're proposing, that the state has proposed, is 75%. And in terms of the MACC region, we should have no difficulty meeting that target. So that is really the statement that I wanted to communicate to you clearly, is that in terms of travel time reliability, our region is functioning quite well as a system. And I think that you'll notice that other MPOs that are struggling with meeting this target, SEMCOG is one in particular. Many factors contribute to that, including congestion due to traffic construction. So, and weather is another factor as well. But
Where is SEMCOG?
SEMCOG is the Detroit MPO.
That makes sense.
Yeah. All right, are there any questions? Okay, I'll go on, and I wanted to point out just a few other things for your information, that it's person miles that's basically being looked at. So
I do have a question.
Sure.
I'm just curious why they set that target so low.
when most of them are close to 100%?
Yeah, that is a good question. I can't answer that specifically. I think that the intent was to be conservative starting out.
Just that the federal government, this is their first time setting these targets for us, and we don't quite know what the expectations are or how other states are doing it nationwide. And so as to show this, some of the data we have is only 2 years worth of data so far. So, and it's trending downward already, so it's kind of to be conservative and not to penalize ourselves. Right, so I think these things will change and grow over the next several years, get more data, and get better targets.
Yeah, and another factor, I mentioned weather was another issue as well. So we obviously don't have control over future weather. 2014 really impacted speeds on many of our segments, so that's another factor that has contributed.
At least, is that a list of all the MPOs?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, sure.
If you don't meet the target, is there a penalty so you get less money to improve your system, or do they award you more money?
Okay, so right now there's no penalty for MPOs. By supporting the state target, we will be programming projects to try and contribute to the target. So regardless of the topic, if we agree to support the state target, we will be programming projects to try and meet whatever the target is. Safety, reliability, pavement, bridge, we'll be talking about those as well. But the way the law is currently written, I believe it's the state that could potentially be penalized if they don't meet NHS targets. So we want to do what we can to help the state. But as you can see from the statistics, you know, the data collected so far, the MACC is actually doing quite well, and MPOs are not penalized.
And one comment to add to that, that's one good plug for supporting the state's targets, because if we do go out on our own and say we're going to establish our own as an MPO, then we do shoulder that liability of having to meet that performance measure and subsequently be open to or subject to potential penalties. Whereas now the state kind of acts as that buffer. We say we're supporting the state as far as what they put out, and if there should be a penalty, then the state will deal with that.
Thank you. That's an important point.
Right.
So what you see before you is non-interstate. Oh, do you have another question?
Also, if we set the goal at 90%, then would a larger percentage of state resources go to restoring those that are way below that rather than coming here? So I like the 75.
That's kind of what the penalties for these are too. It's not more money for the state or less money for the state. It directs where money needs to be spent for not meeting these goals.
So what you see before you is the non-interstate, and I do want to point out that this is where the data is really spotty. There's not as much available. It's not something that we normally collect on non-interstate routes, so this is something that the target, again, is quite low. It's set at 70% for all of the MPOs. All right, and then last, this again is related to freight, and I wanted to point out the target is 1.75, and we are doing quite well to meet that. So we're well below the target for freight. So in terms of the MACC area, freight movement is moving along quite well. So does anyone have any other questions? I did want to point out as well that one of the questions asked during the tech committee is, well, what are the MPOs doing? And we did learn that all of the MPOs in the state have decided to support the state targets, all that you're hearing today. So there's not even, I believe, SEMCOG was one that had not been recorded at this point, but I believe they've also decided to go with the state target. So I'm happy to go on unless there are additional questions.
So what does
Okay.
the grid stand for on this one, at least, the 1.25 or 1.75? What is that?
So let's see, that one on freight reliability. I know that our freight numbers in 2018, it was 1.26, so we're well below that goal, and I think that,
I know the other goal is, 100%,
right,
but I don't know what the number 1.75 means
okay, and,
compared to, we're below that, but what, I don't know what that 1.75
right, and that one is
stands
based
for.
on RIDIS.
Some math formula.
I'm looking for some metrics to be able to help with that.
What is that percent that is here?
Yeah, it's an index based on truck travel reliability on the interstates. Yeah, let's see here. So you'll see on page 3 on the backside for baseline data, it said the overall travel time index on the interstates has remained near 1.5. So,
I see the big math formula on the bottom, so I guess that's good.
yeah. Did that answer your question, or are you still?
Well, I'm not a real mathematician, so I don't know exactly what the formula's pointing out, other than some numbers.
Yeah, okay.
So it's the length of your longest trip compared at 95% of the trips compared to the 50% trips. So I think what it really means is that they need to be on time more often for the just-in-time delivery, so they're holding themselves to that 95%, of the trips, compared to on the passenger side, it was only there was the 75% of the time. So this is just a way of getting at that difference between the longest trips and the medium length trip.
Yeah.
So what's the perfect number? 2?
Yeah, the perfect number is 2, really.
Okay. That's what I was trying to figure out. The
Yeah,
higher the
I know.
number, the better you are?
Or would it be 1?
No, it would be 1, you're right.
Yeah, One.
It'd be 1.
So you want to have that one low?
Yeah.
We're going in the right.
Okay.
Okay.
All of yours.
So I want to golf on this one, and I want to have a shooting percentage on the other one, batting average.
Yes.
Put it in that terms I can understand it.
And so I'd like to just point out, as a staff person, I want to just point out the complexity of this. So, and I'm looking at the second page, the table with travel time reliability measures. So as staff, we would not only have to do this, develop the 2- and 4-year targets and be able to show that we're meeting it based on the 80th percentile for vehicles or for the 95th percentile for trucks. That's a lot of time and a lot of calculation. So I actually feel a sense of relief to know that this data has been provided for us. And my recommendation will be to support the state target. So with that, yes.
So our overall statement to the trucking industry is, if you put your trucks on the road here, they're going to be getting to where they have to get on time pretty much most of the time. Right? But we still could be a little better.
Right, and we will work with the state to collect data and to be able to report in our progress report how we're doing in future years. So, and this is being done across the state, so we'll be able to show freight stakeholders in our region how well we're doing.
So we'll know whether the highway design and the upkeep of the highway is affecting our trucking industry, positively or negatively, right?
To some extent, but there will always be things like construction, crashes, weather, so it'll never be quite perfect.
So is that a fact? That's not factored in.
Well, it is factored into the data that we get, that is in there, that's why, and that's a large part of the reason why no one is right at 1, I believe, is because there are intermittent delays that are recorded throughout the year. So
So it's a science and an art. Yeah. It's a science and an art.
Yes, both a science and an art. All right, so I would like to walk you through, and I'm not saying, we'll have just a moment for additional questions if there are more. I now want to take you to pavement and then bridge. And this story is a little easier for me to communicate to you. And I'd like to just point out that this illustration here for you is also in the newsletter that was provided in your packet. So basically what we're looking at is interstate pavement, and the goal here is for 2021. The goal is to have 47.8% of interstate pavement that is considered good, so slightly less than half of our pavement to be good. This is statewide. All right, and you will know that Carolyn had presented to you the PASER data, so you have available to you all of the ratings of our roads within the MACC area. But this is a slightly different measurement, and it's called an IRI, which I think that I just wanted to mention that the measurement is slightly different than PASER. I'll settle it at that. But basically what you see from this illustration is that the target is, again, a conservative target. And we're acknowledging statewide that the percent of roads that are in poor condition are going to increase. So plain and simple, the number of roads that we have that are in good condition are decreasing, and the number of roads that are in poor condition are increasing.
So, Alyssa, why did the legislature pass the gas tax reform to put more money into MDOT's hands if our roads are going to continue to go down?
This illustrates how great the need is for additional funding to maintain our transportation network. So, and I think that, yeah, plain and simple, the needs are great. And so in order to develop a target that meets the federal requirements, we see here that we, based on the current funding levels, we simply cannot maintain what we have with the funding that we have.
That's the thing, is funding levels are supposed to be going up.
they're not going up to meet the need.
That's
They're
it.
not going high enough.
And that's the piece that we're trying to communicate, is that they're not going, the funding levels are not high enough to maintain what we currently have in good condition.
And this comes back to that same setting a conservative goal, that's, you know, being that this is one of the first iterations, and not setting too high of a goal. Is that correct, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, that's the case. The one that the federal government has set for us is that 95% of the pavements on the interstate have to be in good condition. Again, this is, as Lisa said, it's the IRI, which is something that hasn't been measured in Michigan before. The state has used RSL, and the locals have all used the PASER data. So this ride quality index is not something that we kind of have any experience with. We don't know how to forecast it. There's no tools that forecast it out into the future very well. And there are things that are intuitively wrong with it, we feel. Things like, if we crack seal a pavement, that is extending the life of a pavement, but it is creating a rougher ride. And that is going to make this pavement look, a particular brand new pavement, once you crack seal it, will make it look bad. And there are also pavements that we know are in very bad shape, that the ride on them is quite smooth, and then it will last, so it'll be smooth for the next year or two, but it won't last for a long time. So there are a lot of things that go into, you know, these measures are now nationwide, so we have to report on these, but we are going to continue to, you know, strive for the 95% good, 95 good on the freeway and 85% on the non-freeway. That has been the MDOT goal, the Transportation Commission goal for many years. It's just a different measure, so it's not, although they both say percent good and percent bad, they're not measuring the same things.
You know, Eric, it seems today is not the day, but I bet I'm not alone when I say I would like to have some discussion about how the roads really do get fixed, because it seems like the answer has been there's just not enough money. Today is not the day, but to me, that would be a pretty interesting conversation. It probably gets political based upon who's going to be governor, but it seems like there was kind of a fix that didn't fix it. And I just wonder, where do you go from there at some point? So.
I know that our neighbors in the Midwest are definitely contributing a great deal towards their road improvements. So as a state, we want to make sure our roads are keeping up. So
At least so the target ones here, that's what is the minimum target.
it is.
Right. So what we spend on the roads, the money we get, could actually maintain us at the 56%. But we're just saying it's not going to go below 47.8, or else there's penalties or other things, emergency fixes that have to be done to maintain the federal guideline. Correct? That's right.
I understand it, yep. All right, and I did want to mention, and I thank you, Eric, for pointing out the difference between, the metric here is ride quality, whereas PASER, we go through a training to be able to evaluate structural condition of a roadway. So there might be cracks in the wheel path and it rides beautifully, but Tom, I'm sure, can attest to the fact that if you've got cracks in the wheel path, that's a structural defect and you've got some issues long term. It's not going to last as long. So, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, so do we switch how we do cities now? Throw out the PASER and do our IRI?
No. I think PASER is a great system, and the Asset Management Council intends to continue. We have funding for future years to continue. And it's just, this is an additional piece of information, and this piece is required by the federal government. But I wanted to let you know that we intend to have a regular report card on pavement. And Carolyn has been working, and I'll just let you know that she's been working on communicating our data to you in a way that you can easily understand. So she's been giving pie charts and maps of our segments in the region. We intend to continue to do that, and she has been working on a final report, an asset management report. So I think it's important to have all the information on the table.
Well, that's a shame with the crack and seal, because that seems like such a good way to help roads long-term. It's structurally responsible, and now it's all about comfort. I mean, it's the ultimate couch potato rating, and it's not really going to help us long-term. And we also don't have toll roads that all the neighboring states have. You know, it'd be an interesting study to see what a difference that makes. And of course, we don't have transit across our state from one coast to the other, so we're a peninsula. But I don't know if that kind of thing has ever been thought of, or if we cannot come up with money another way. I don't know. I would hate to pay that, but everybody does, and in most other states.
Yeah, so it'll be an interesting conversation to talk about funding, and that's next on the agenda, to talk about what we're planning on doing in terms of putting together our 4-year improvement program. So I have a few. Sure.
Question. Are there 3 categories and the missing 40% would be fair?
No, I don't believe so. This one for pavement performance, they're looking at good and poor for the targets.
So essentially, the remaining payments there would be fair, or in between poor and good. I don't know if they don't use fair in the IRI targets, but I think that's a good assumption that those payments.
So the IRR is just measuring 2 separate and distinct categories.
And I want to point out to you as well that there is, so we just looked at interstate pavement, And we now have non-interstate NHS, so that would be applying specifically to MACC area roads that are within the NHS. So, and for this, it's a little bit, I wanted to point out as well that we have a target both for 19 and 21 on the non-interstate NHS. So going back to how much data we need to collect as an MPO, this is another factor I want to just bring to your attention. So again, it's a similar story here in that the target is, conservative, and we again are expecting statewide to see the non-interstate NHS roadways to increase that are poor. So I do have a few other things I want to point out to you as well, and this is actually regarding bridge. So are there any other questions regarding pavement? There is a lot of information for you today, but these newsletters I think that were prepared by MDOT staff are really helpful to tell the story of some of the challenges that we face. And I think that what's important for you as local leaders is to understand what the state picture is, and we together need to figure out how to communicate this to the public.
So we have all these complicated formulas, but when the federal money comes to the state to divvy it out through the system, and one area is really in bad shape, other areas have worked hard, like to get millages and to responsibly keep up their roads. Is that figured out in the metrics on how we give out the money throughout the state?
So it's primarily based on population right now, and I know, would you like to speak to that, Eric?
Population and mileage are the biggest factors in any distribution, so.
And me.
I don't need to, no.
Okay, good.
Change. Lisa, I just, on top of page 4, this blue thing, basically, those are all the variables that impact all of us. So this doesn't sound like it's a science, but it's something got to be done, and it's helpful. It's complicated, confusing, but the fact is, there's all kinds of variables that are going to impact it.
Yes,
right?
that is correct. And right, there are many different variables, but we as a region are going to do the best we can to program projects that will address the need. And we as staff will be responsible for giving you a snapshot to see how well we're meeting the targets. So, and working closely with MDOT, because a lot of this, as I said, this data is being provided by MDOT. They're looking at it statewide. So, all right. I'd like to go on to one more picture for you, and this is pulled out of the Bridge newsletter. And I think that tells a very similar story. And basically what you're seeing here is that we are expecting the percentage of bridges to improve to be less than the percentage of bridges that are expected to deteriorate. So I know that the state has an excellent bridge program, and they do collect a great deal of bridge data. But with regard to the target, this is something that on page 4 of your newsletters, you can see that the target is, again, a conservative one to try and stay in line with where we've been historically. So, all right. That is all I have to say about performance measures, unless there are any additional questions or topics. But I did want to just let you know that there is a lot of information for you to digest, and I'm aware of that. But we will do the best we can to make sure we put this together in a progress report for you for next month. So
I want to make sure I know what's coming next. So what you're looking for is a motion to approve the performance targets, and then we're going to move on into another transportation component, correct? Okay, a motion to approve the performance targets as recommended.
So moved.
Support.
Comments or questions? You piqued our interest, I'll tell you that. We all were like, something's here. I should have paid better attention to algebra. I didn't see that one coming in. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Back on.
Yes. All right, and I'm really surprised because I know sometimes I feel like some of this material can be really boring, but it is an important story. I mean, we have some challenges ahead in terms of maintaining our network. So, okay. All right, so I don't have any other slides for you, but I do have a memorandum. Excuse me, just one second while I pull that out for you. Okay, so we had a very full technical committee meeting this month, as you can imagine, with all of these performance measures, and we did invite guests from MDOT and MACC Transit to help walk through a lot of the performance measures. Related to the TIP, we have a memo that has a number of different projects that the technical committee recommended that we take action on. And the first one I wanted to bring to your attention is an administrative modification, which basically, whenever a project is in a general program account, it's called a GPA, many projects can be listed in that category. And if they pull it out to take action on that project specifically, we want to let you all know about that. So the first item is a traffic detection and signal integration project, and this will be at US 31 and Port Sheldon. And what's important about this project is that it is designed to reduce the number of angle crashes that have happened at that location. So using some of the safety data that we've been going through. And another thing about this, which I learned earlier today, is that it will also help address some of the problems of semi-trucks that were running reds at that location. So this is funding that MDOT has made available, and this is an MDOT project, but I wanted to let you know that this is a project that we have modified in the JobNet to be able to allocate the safety funds to it. All right. The other projects are not administrative modifications, they're amendments. And those projects need policy action from the policy committee. So I wanted to just quickly walk through them and let you know what they are so that you can take action. The first one is requested by MDOT, and it is US 31 from Central Avenue to the county line. So it's basically repaving, but it's the design work for that project. And it's a new project, so anytime we have a new project, we must ask for policy approval. Beneath that is the Clean Air Action Program. That's a program that we've had every year within the TIP. But for 2019, it was not included in the TIP because we had allocated the CMACC funds to a non-motorized project. And we are anticipating some additional CMACC funds to become available, so it has to be listed as a line item in the TIP to be able to receive funds. So that is what we're recommending, that it be included in the TIP. And currently, what's being proposed is we're basically redistributing some of the current planning funds that we have specifically for that project. And so if additional CMACC funds become available, they would be allocated in the future. And then on the back of this memo, there are two rail safety projects. One is at Waverly Road in the city of Holland, and the other is on East 40th Street, also in the city of Holland. And I understand that that the city of Holland's staff have taken it along as far as it can go, but these projects both need to be shifted into 2019 and cannot be completed in the current fiscal year. So that also requires an amendment of the policy committee. So basically, You have 4 projects to take action on today if you would approve an amendment to the fiscal year 19 program. Are there any questions?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Jerry. Clarifications or questions? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Elisa, thank you very much. Appreciate your effort today. Mr. Berkman's going to speak. I should mention that he may be asking us to amend the agenda, that Kelly's presentation may come next month, so we're going to move that to the end, and if we have time, we will. If we don't, we'll adjust it. So, Tim.
Thank you. Yeah, I think for the sake of time, if we have enough time, Kelly does have a presentation, which is a little commercial for next month if it does slide to that agenda. She was going to do an MS4 training overview, which she's been going out to our MS4 entities and providing trainings to staff of those agencies. But really, it's a great opportunity that some of our other agencies here who may not be MS4s could take advantage of, as far as training staff that's out on the roads, maintenance staff, park staff, whatever you may have, to spot things like illicit discharge and detection, and what to do if you see that. So that's the little snapshot of, if we don't have time today, because we do have a MACC holding meeting after this, we can get to next month. And if you have questions in the meantime, ask Kelly. But what I wanted to do now is talk about schedule for what can we do to move the needle on some of these performance measures you just talked about, and I think had a good discussion on. And so what we're going to talk about is a slightly accelerated timeline from what you have previously done, as far as I understand, with programming your 4-year tip cycles. So in past practice, you've looked at this process kind of in the November, December timeframe, as far as selecting projects and then adopting them in January. We're looking to move that up just a little bit, and this came out of a discussion at our last technical committee meeting, because we have some fiscal year 19 funds that became available that we need to hurry up and program so that we can get a project ready for next construction season. So what do we have available? That fiscal year 19 reallocation is really what's going to drive this to get done a little bit faster. A total of $320,000, which is enough to do a somewhat substantial project, or maybe two minor projects or more. We'll just see what comes in. But that came from the emergency access project from Laketown Township. That's still on our illustrative list, but won't go to construction next year. And then City of Zeeland came to us and said they have in excess of $100,000 programmed for the roundabout project and associated work that they do not need, and so they wanted to see that, of course, be used in the region. So that $320,000 is what we have available for 19 to program. And then the next tip cycle, which will go from 2020 to 2023. These are estimates at this point, but based on past history and kind of what we've learned from the state, about $425,000 a year in CMAQ and $1.5 million in STP. Federal Highway Administration will release what the actual amounts are soon, and then we'll get those from the state. But that's kind of the order of magnitude that we're talking for this process. So our proposed timeline, we're going to convene a working group out of the technical committee on October 5th to establish the criteria. Now, you have a standard set of criteria that we've been working from, I think, over the past several cycles. But because of what we talked about today, we need to also incorporate these performance measures into that criteria, as far as how we select the projects that will be entered into the TIP. So working group will come up with a recommendation to technical committee. Technical committee will review that on October 8th, again, incorporating those pavement safety, transit performance measures, and then come to a consensus and recommendation on October 8th at their meeting that we'll eventually bring to you at the October meeting. But immediately thereafter, we're going to issue the call for projects again, so the agencies can get going on the process now that they'll have the recommended criteria, just to not lose any time. Then your next policy meeting is October 22nd. So we'll come to you with the recommended criteria, ask for you to consider and adopt that. If there are any changes that come out of that October 22nd meeting, we can always issue an addendum to our call for projects that went out on October 10th. Then we'll have the applications due November 16th. Again, that gives about 5 weeks or so for the agencies to develop their project applications, get them into us. Use the Thanksgiving timeframe for staff to review and develop a recommended list. We'll convene a TIP development committee there early in December to kind of review a staff first cut at things. And then December 10th will be our next technical committee meeting, where we'll review what the TIP development committee came up with and make a recommendation back to this group. And then at your December meeting, we'll ask for policy to take action on, again, our draft of the 2020 to 2023 TIP list, and then also the reallocation of the 2019 funds so that somebody ends up with a project under the Christmas tree before the end of the year. From there, just to kind of run through the rest of what's going to happen in the TIP development process, MDOT will be reviewing our draft list of projects that we begin entering into the JobNet program in January and February. Kind of one of the two hard deadlines that the state has told us about is March 1st. We have to have all of our projects programmed into and approved in the JobNet management program. March and April then will be spent doing more review, and of course there's public participation and involvement all throughout these series of steps. But MDOT and Federal Highway will do their reviews. Then we'll come to your June meeting. The May and June meetings are being combined, we're proposing. And so June 3rd is what you'll see on your list of meetings that were handed out to you earlier. As far as a action on the final TIP document. And then the second hard deadline that I mentioned that MDOT gave us is we need to have that into them by June 28th. So just kind of wanted to lay out that timetable for you and let you know why we're doing things a little bit more advanced perhaps than we've done in the past. It's to get those 2019 funds allocated, or reallocated really. And then to also let you know that we're taking it a little bit out of order by issuing a call for projects with some recommended criteria that you won't have acted on yet, but you'll get a chance to act on that at the October meeting. And again, if there's any changes that need to be made, we can go back and issue an addendum. But we just kind of wanted to take advantage of the time that we had available and get this out as quickly as we could so the local agencies could begin developing their submissions. So any questions on that? No?
I got one question. What happened to the CSX crossings over in Holland Township and Salem Township that we're planning on having this year?
Yeah, so I think, as I understand it, it was an issue of timing and scheduling. Just didn't get it through the process in time. But those are not MACC funds that are being programmed. Those are rail safety funds between the railroad and the state. So it really doesn't affect our projects that are queued up in the TIP. But is there anything else to add to that, Elisa?
I believe there was one project on 72nd. Is that what you're asking about?
Correct.
And that did move forward. So that was indeed obligated in JobNet. So for fiscal year 18.
Oh, that made it in. Okay.
That went.
All right. I thought you were referring to.
That's only 72nd in Zealand Charter Township.
So when is that going to happen?
It's scheduled to happen in 18.
But if things get tight, what we will do is we'll obligate 18 money for a job that will be constructed in 19, because it's obligated so late in the fiscal year 18. I'm not sure, I'd have to dig a little bit to see what their plan is, but that's what can happen. So it can go either way. It's been obligated, so therefore the money's assigned to it. It's just a matter of timing and seasons.
We've got a lot of that with roads right now too, so not much happening.
Well, yeah. That's a whole nother issue.
I know.
Right.
Eric, any further comments?
We've covered everything.
Okay. Steve?
Oh, just one brief comment. In a conversation about the how we pick projects and our project selection within our 5-year program, which is on the net. But just Google MDOT 5-year program instead of going to our website and trying to go through that. It works better. So, but that has it has a real high-level discussion of how we choose projects and some of the factors that come into play. We do have a call for projects that are reviewed every year internally. So just like there's a call for projects within the MACC, MDOT has a call for projects. And, you know, there's a number of things that go into decision-making, which projects that get done, mix of fixes where we use some computer inputs and variables to address the best way to use our money. We also do a lot of objective data gathering about the conditions of our roads. And then the last thing is that we review a lot of our hate mail and you know, see what kind of you know, things the citizens and the driving public are after or think that should be improved. So a combination of those is how we kind of arrive at a program. And believe me, I'm putting this in the most simplistic form, but it gets a little bit more in depth within our 5-year program that shows the kind of things that we consider. So that's the one thing I just wanted to let you know. And I have found through the years our 5-year program document in the beginning, not the project list, does have some pretty good information in terms of how we do our business. So that's what I have.
What are MDOT's plans for the Ford? Other than it getting worse, I-196.
In which section? In
Zealand to Grand Rapids.
well, I know that we're doing some reconstruction to the west, to the east, excuse me. That's why we're building that crossover. We've got a project plan next year to do some of that. So that's one way we're getting at it. We've got some other projects in this area that there's been one due to a conflict with a rather large culvert that we've had to move out to make sure we have enough funding and do it in a way that's coordinated that makes the most sense. So those are the two areas that stick out in my mind as to what we're doing here in trying to get at 196.
Wasn't there some talk earlier this year or last year that there was some temporary repairs going to be made on 196?
Yeah, that should be, well, that's being affected by the labor strife right now. That's a project that's in the tip and that we've got designed and we're ready to do it, but we need you know, power equipment operators to make it happen. And I do know, I'm no expert on this, but the one thing I did read today is that from 2 days ago that the governor's office is trying to bring them together this week and get at some solution so the projects that are near completion get completed. It's kind of a strange deal. In my 25 years with MDOT, I've never seen anything like this in terms of having a labor strife, impact our projects that are already, you know, holding up traffic and will only extend that traffic impact. So I think a lot of people are taken by surprise or just looking for the best way to try to handle this as we can, as everybody can, and move forward.
Well, how come teachers can't strike and construction people can?
Well, maybe you might see a change of that. I don't know. I mean, in all seriousness, because
It's not a strike, it's a lockout.
That's true too. Yeah.
Management locked the workers out, so.
Yeah, that's
Is that a
true. So I
euphemism
guess.
for- yeah, well, okay.
That's why you know, there's been talk about both sides. That's why I try to use the neutral term labor strife. as I don't know all the detail.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve. Interesting comments about the hate mail. It was pretty interesting.
That's a call for us to send emails, right?
It does kind of make you think a
Sounds
little
like it.
bit, doesn't it?
The MACC itself has the MACC has sent us letters. Now they're more polite hate mail, but nonetheless we understand the message. We read between the lines, so you know. But yeah.
How deep is your pile of thank you notes?
Not as much.
Oh, we get some.
Jerry.
You get some, okay.
You know, a lot of people are frustrated with like Lakewood, exit 55, Zealand. Lakewood, I can go by there 10 times in a week, and 9 times out of those 10, nobody's working on it. And I'm not sure if that's MDOT or who that is. Well, what's going on? What's taking so long? Whose project is that?
That's the water main project, yeah.
Who's?
It's the township's water main.
Well, but nobody's working on it most of the time.
The same
There's
people-
nobody there.
The same people are being, in theirs, they are in Zealand, so it's the same people that are working on it.
Is it because of this labor dispute or?
That would be my guess, it's a local
Well,
project.
nobody's working on it before they had a labor dispute, quite frankly. But what do we know about that?
I heard supervisors were working on it. They're locked out, but the supervisors.
Is that part of that
I think it is.
labor dispute?
Not only that, but these companies have other work, they've changed, they go do some other work for a little bit, and they come back, they're really busy at this point in time. But the pipeline is supposed to be done early to mid-October, and after that, implementation will be taking place.
So we're coming to the end of it.
I think so. I just, I had a little radio stamp the other day, I just told everybody to take a deep breath, and that
Yes, honest.
As we all know, the roads have really been taking a big hit. And I hesitated to say anything about it, but I think that if I am, and I am, this is the body to see it to. Battle cry, politically, is it's time to fix the blank roads. I'll let you fill in the blank. What seems very unfair is the fact that at one time, Michigan was known nationally for an excellent highway system. This dates me, but at the time, the President of the United States was Jimmy Carter. And he awarded an award to the state of Michigan, and I know this firsthand because at the time, and forgive the reference to myself, I was chairman of the Michigan Transportation Commission. And the award that President Carter awarded to the state of Michigan was his park and ride lots across some of its freeways in the state of Michigan. The first state in the nation to utilize that concept. And now we've got a financial shortfall. And the question is how to make it up. As perhaps all of you know, but certainly MDOT representative does, the sales tax is also on fuel. But the sales tax on fuel does not go to our roads. It goes to the other fund that's put in the state of Michigan. I think that's very, very unfair and hesitant. And again, forgive me for the reference to myself. I've been hesitant to bring it up. But I think it's time to bring it up. The sales tax that we pay on, together with a fuel tax, the sales tax on a gallon of gasoline also includes that. And but it does not go to our roads. So I'm just hoping that somehow people that are running for election will take that into mind if they're aware of it. Perhaps they're not aware of it, give them the benefit of the doubt. Just a lot of council's time, but thanks for hearing me out.
So your presence makes us a better organization. I really appreciate your comments and your being here today. That issue certainly is a key one, and what's happened. I think the last time the gas tax federally was raised was 1994, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, with decreasing amounts of fuel being used with more conservative vehicles, not the right word, but fuel-efficient vehicles, those dollars just are not coming. Perhaps Hannes's comments can request you to maybe think about that issue a little bit.
Sure.
I was going to something else, but I may be gone. All right, thank you to everyone for those comments on transportation. To you, Tim, administrative issues.
All right, so you'll get the, well, this isn't working, but I was gonna say we're gonna fly through Kelly's slides. Thanks for being flexible, Kelly. This is what you'll see next month. In front of you, though, you have at your place a revised budget amendment number 3, which you can tell it, fourth line down from the very top says presented on September 24th. So that's the one to look at. 2 very minor changes from what went out in your packet, and I'll run through those briefly. But as far as revenue, as I mentioned in the memo that you had, there was $60,000 that's just being carried over into next year from some Great Lakes Commission grants, $15,000 from our West Michigan Prosperity Alliance grant that's looking at our watershed sustainable funding study. And then line 11, $25,000. Really, that's just kind of a reprogramming note of showing community enhancement program as a supporting contribution or an expense, as opposed to a revenue line item there. But that's the $25,000 that the MACC, that this board previously approved to go towards community enhancement. Skipping down to line 44, that was one of the 2 minor changes. I think previously it showed 3,000. We're showing 3,330 under City of Holland stormwater. That just reflects the actual payment that was received for some of the inspections that were done for the City of Holland. And overall, under revenues, we're basically showing a decrease of $75,351. Skipping to the second page, the second of those 2 minor edits is on line 79, just showing an expense of $200 under City of Holland stormwater. Those were just mileage, some other miscellaneous things that were charged to that line item. So that previously was not in the amendment that was issued to you. And then skipping down to the bottom, we're showing then a decrease in total expenses of $121,200. So in summary, the excess of revenues over expenses with this budget amendment, if approved, is $56,026.89. So I'd be happy to take any questions, but I'm asking for your approval of this, the final budget amendment in the fiscal year, which wraps up, of course, at the end of this month.
Motion?
I move that we approve the budget amendments as proposed.
Thank you.
Support.
Questions?
Just one, the 25,000 to an enhancement, and I recall that was, I think this committee suggested that, is that was set up. Is that a one-time thing? I don't recall. Or is that an annual thing?
My understanding was that was a one-time, but I wasn't here for that, so I'd take any other input.
That's my understanding too. One time.
Yeah.
Further questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Tim?
All right, so then you also have the financial report, which now the percentages have changed with the passage of that budget amendment, because of course it brought some of those line items down. But as of year to date, we're sitting at an excess of $139,956 of revenues over expenses. So we're in good shape as we finish out the fiscal year. Any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
Okay, executive committee report.
So the executive committee met and just kind of updated them on the individual meetings I've been having with all of you. So thank you for those of you that have accommodated a sit-down meeting with myself and your schedules, and those of you that haven't, would hope to do so in the coming weeks. But probably the main topic that we discussed that I wanted to bring up today was the makeup and structure of the executive committee. As you all probably remember well, I understand there was quite a bit of discussion on that with respect to the bylaws that were recently approved by this board and are going through the individual units now being approved by your boards. And I wanted to bring that up. As you probably recall, the bylaws amended the executive committee to be a makeup of a 7-member committee with 1 city township participant, at least 1 county participant, and at least 1 transportation participant, and 1 at-large rep. So then the other 3 could be any one of those repeated. So the bylaws call for that to be, that board or that committee to be elected in October, which will be your next month's meeting. So I wanted to have a discussion today as far as that nomination process and how that should work. I understand the last time this was done, a nominating committee was selected from this group to review the committee, the makeup, and nominate members that was then brought to the subsequent policy meeting. And so we'd like to, I guess, have that discussion today as far as.
So the nominating committee would basically meet with you and then go through the process of nominations and selections and recommendations.
And come with a recommendation to your October meeting, yes.
The members in the previous were Howard, Terry, Jerry, and Kevin. If you gentlemen are willing to serve, but I would also take others who would be interested, so. You okay serving? Jerry?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yep.
And who was the last one?
Howard.
Who did I miss?
Can I ask a question?
Howard, sorry. Yes, sir.
Based on the comment part of the meeting, a majority of the local governmental units have approved the bylaw changes.
Yes.
So are we going to assume that the new bylaws are in effect for October as we bring forth this? Is that right?
That was the assumption I was going to operate on.
Well, I just want to make sure everybody's, on board with that, obviously, right? So we're going to do the, fine. I think that's appropriate.
Any other members wish to be a part of that nominating committee? I would suggest if you have thoughts about it, perhaps email Tim would be the best channel for that. And then we'll let you establish the date for that nominating committee to meet. So,
Yes.
any other comments, Tim, that you want to make?
Just what Jerry brought up as far as the bylaws, if you are one of the units in the minority now that have not approved those, please do so. We were going to make an effort to do that before or by the October timeframe. And then you have at your place in front of you the fiscal year 19 meeting schedule. Again, as I alluded to, the May and June meetings are being combined to June 3rd on account of the Memorial Day holiday. And then January 7th will be the combination of the December-January meetings. So if you have any conflicts with those, especially if you're going to be the host that particular meeting, please let us know. But otherwise, this will be the schedule that we work off of.
So if you're going to eliminate December, this year you're just trying to move that up, right? So is that going to be different next calendar year?
Yes, that is a good point. Maybe what we'll do is work to see if we can't slide everything to that November 26th meeting. I didn't catch that until right now when you said that. So, very good point.
Okay, we're about to you, Kevin. I did want to mention there is a holding meeting after this that Tim will lead, so please stay. I want to say thank you for that chart you did. That's what I had forgot. That timeline was really helpful to me, so thanks for making that process clear. Thank you to all the members. The conversation here has been really good today, and thank you to staff as well. Kevin.
I'll keep it short. I think we ran over a little bit, but busy time in Zeeland this year. We had several roads we reconstructed, complete reconstruction with water and sewer, Alpine and Colonial and Weston and Richfield on the southeast side. Of course, we got the mess on the interchange loop, business loop. Hopefully that gets taken care of. We had our new playground that used to be Timbertown was open, and that is fully used and used a lot down by Heising Park. And also we just got in bids for Heising Park, where it's called Phase 2, and that will be pickleball courts and a new restroom facility there. So that goes to council probably in September, or maybe first meeting in October for approval. And so hopefully we have some new pickleball courts and a restroom by Heising Park. So And then, of course, bring your family to Zeeland, October 5 and 6 for Pumpkin Fest. Parade on Saturday, events on Friday. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. Hannes, you have brought intelligence as always to this group. I hope you're back for many more meetings. We are a much better group with you here, so thank you for being here. Back to you.
All right, as David mentioned, MACC holding meeting, it's actually going to be down the stairs, so just go out this door, take the stairwell down, and then I think it's immediately on your left as you wrap around the corner, small conference room. So I'm told those of you who are on MACC holding know who you are, because I don't yet, so please do come. I promise it'll be brief, but we'll just run through the small agenda that we have. And that's it.
Good job.